Okay, so hello everybody, and welcome to this session. Dr. Vinesh, thank you very much for being here. We have a really interesting topic, but also very complex. Agents are a promising technology, but they still have a lot of room to evolve. And then there is the edge. We are used to running models in the cloud where we have all the computer power that we need. So integrating these two elements seems like a major challenge. Why is it so critical to run these agents directly on device, in our cars, on our PCs, on our smartphones?
Great question, by the way. Thank you. And good afternoon, one and all. I see a lot of exciting faces in the crowd. Thanks for coming for my talk today. To answer your question, at Qualcomm, we truly believe AI can be done on the cloud. AI could be done on the edge for sure. And one of the biggest challenges we have today is most of the AI inferencing is very generic in nature. And you want to transition from a more generic enablement path to a personalized enablement path. And what that actually means is you want to have the contextual background. You want to have the emotional intelligence about the user. You want to have a lot of personal choices about the user, and that piece of information only Edge is able to provide. The cloud can always provide you the reach and scale, and obviously can run a lot of large reasoning models. And we believe as a function of hybrid, when you have a combination of what Edge can provide about the user, in addition to user privacy, faster responsiveness, security, you bang that along with the larger models on the edge, lays the foundation of more hybrid AI and moving towards a path of personalized inference rather than a generic inference.
Okay. And well, any developers watching now, they may be thinking that developing for the edge is really hard because you have a lot of constraints. You have memory constraints, you have power constraints, or also thermal constraints. What is the single biggest architectural shift a developer needs to make when moving from a cloud-first AI application to a on-device agent?
It's a fair point. Briefly about Qualcomm, right? Qualcomm has been in the inference space for close to 20 plus years. We started our journey with doing a lot of simple signal processing with audio and speech workloads. And today we also do a lot of complex, large models, both instruction-based and reasoning-based. So as such, we've had a lot of experience working with a lot of edge devices, including phones, IoT devices, AR, VR, XR, PC, and automotive environments. And as such, you understand the constraints of the system. As you truly mentioned, could be bandwidth, could be memory. But at the same time, it's also important to understand that when you look at from a development to a deployment time frame, you want to shorten that up as much as possible. And because of which we put a lot of emphasis on our software solutions. Now, as I mentioned before, with the hybrid solutions, we are now empowering the developers to be more superpowers. That means, by definition, you're trying to understand the context about the user, the personal information about the user. How can you augment that to prompts that go into a large model? So this is something we are trying to make it easier by a product offering called AI Hub, wherein we are trying to make the journey of the developer a lot more easier. We also have a very strong partnership with Google and Microsoft to really make sure the scale of deployment, either be on a Windows subsystem or Android subsystem, is made a lot more easier. So this is somehow only Qualcomm can do because of its scale and reach. And this is obviously the very first step to really make sure that the journey is smaller. And as we continue to engage with a lot more developers, we expect this journey to continue to improve.
Okay. So about the Qualcomm AI Hub, it features a library of pre-optimized models, but it also lets developers bring their own model there. So right now, which of these options is seeing the widest adoption, and why do you think it is?
Another great question. Just to give the audience a brief history of what Qualcomm AI Hub is all about. As I mentioned before, we are trying to make the journey of a developer from a development to a deployment a lot more easier. And, um, and as such, we kind of invested in a Qualcomm AI Hub solution, which we launched, give or take, about 18 months ago, wherein we have the tools to provide quantized version of the models, give them source documentation and few lines of code to be able to translate these quantized models into developing applications across different OS flavors. We started off with Android, and then we went into Windows, and we also went into Linux. And I think, from a developer community standpoint, it got a lot more traction because we have now taken the difficult part of making sure inferencing on the edge can be done quite smoothly and with automation. Now, have you seen a lot of success stories? Absolutely. We have seen a lot of developers use this asset. They try to play around with it, and they have launched a lot of perception-related models into Play Store. Now, we're trying to take that same scenario and then expand that to what you call large vision, language, or other reasoning models, and also enable agentic flows on top of it. So this is something which is work in progress, and we're trying to expand that with that offering starting this year.
And also, developing AI agents for the edge means as well developing for a wide range of form factors. You have PCs, you have smartphones, cars, IoT devices, wearables. There is a long list. So how can developers overcome this complexity?
A good point. I'll be the very first one to admit is AI inferencing on the edge is hard, it's difficult. And it's difficult and hard primarily because of the plethora of the form factors that we have to support. As I mentioned, there could be memory constraints, bandwidth constraints, performance constraints. And as such, we had invested in AI Hub to really make sure that we are able to provide precompiled binaries. And these precompiled binaries is automatically provided to you once you choose what is the end platform that you want to deploy. And we're able to do that both on the Android, Windows, and the Linux subsystem. So that way, the developer does not have to go through that journey. And we also, at the same time, are working with Microsoft to really make sure that they can expand the portfolio of models that AI Hub today is not able to offer, and Windows can able to do it. And we're doing the same thing with Google as well. So in such, we have multiple assets now we are providing to developers. As such, if you want to have a multiple parallel paths, if someone says, I don't want to be using AI Hub because I'm not really familiar with the usage model, I would rather work within the Microsoft playground or work within the Google playground, that is also doable because now we have a strong partnership. So with this kind of multifaceted approach, we're trying to make sure we remove the stress in the system and make the deployment journey a lot more easier, given the plethora of challenges we have on a myriad form factors that edge really involves it.
And I want you to tell us about robotics as well, because it's a really promising field for agentic AI. But again, we have a lot of constraints, and also there are a lot of kind of robots, types of robots. So what advice would you give to developers or companies that are exploring this field?
Robotics is now, from my perspective, is a growing field. There are different levels of autonomy when you go towards robotics, L1 to L5, and people really are interested in making sure we go towards fully autonomous humanoids. And you still have a lot of challenges when you look at robotics. Obviously, there is one element of sensor perception, wherein you want to look at how you're able to digest the information around you from camera or for sensing elements and make a decision around it. The most difficult part usually kind of comes to the fact is how do you mix language, a multi-complex task language with depth. What I mean by saying that is if I'm talking to a humanoid or robot and say, please bring me that blue cup which is on the left-hand side of the table. It's a complex instruction for the robot. It does not fully really understand what does left-hand side of the table really mean. How is it able to correlate that with the blue color of the cup? Those are, again, a mixture of language plus camera. So these kind of actions needs to be a lot more precise. It needs to be repeatable. And also at the same time, we need to put in the elements of safety. Safety is extremely critical when you want to go towards, autonomous agents. So these things, there's a lot of research happening. A lot of folks are kind of studying it. It's also important whether you're going towards commercial or more consumer deployment, because the levels of autonomy significantly changes. So in conclusion, I think it's a new field, exciting field. I personally spend a lot of time in that area. And I suspect, a lot of ecosystem, a lot of startup companies are putting a lot of investment in that. And I'm just excited to see what happens next.
Okay. And well, you were speaking about safety. You mentioned safety, and well, agents are autonomously. They act autonomously. So this means that they are accessing APIs, tools, data. How do you build an orchestration layer on device that allows an AI agent to safely and also securely call a flight booking API, then access your private calendar, then maybe access your camera, all that without creating a massive security risk?
It's a great point. Security and reliability kind of go in together, right? And there are many layers of security. So one element I'll tell you is within the edge itself, and the other component of it is how do you interact between applications within the edge and possibly within the cloud. When I was talking about personalization, you have to take a lot of contextual information, a lot of information about the user. And this can come from your browsing history, can come from your screen understanding, can come from your chats, and can come from a lot of other preferences of choice. When you extract this level of information, it needs to be securely stored. At Qualcomm, we put a lot of effort to really make sure that this information is accessible only after approval by the user. It's encrypted and it's not given to any application of choice. Only upon the authorization of the user, that physical personal knowledge graph that has been developed for the user is shared between applications. Now, once that is completed, authentication is done, provided by the user. Next thing kind of really becomes is the information about the user to which specific applications you want to give. Do you want to just give it to the first-party applications designed by these OEMs, or do you want to give this information that is provided to third-party developers? And that is something which, there's no correct answer as such. You always have the user in the loop. It's always the user's choice to be able to share that personal knowledge graph with, a third party. And, there are going to be instances wherein third parties can use this information reliably and securely, and there are going to be instances when they don't use this information properly. And if they don't, then a certain amount of action needs to be done. So this is something, we are learning in the process, users are learning in the process to get it done. Then the last and the most important element is there's been a lot of conversation about MCP protocols, or between edge to cloud, or between agent to agent. There are always going to be bad agents. There are always going to be bad back-end MCP servers. The question is, how do you really make sure that the agent that you're talking to or the data information that you're sharing to as part of your MCP protocol is safe or not? I wish I had a perfect answer. The industry is learning in this space. The explosion in the space has been quite rapid, that people are kind of setting up things as we talk about these kind of elements. That's why you see a lot of these consumer and enterprise applications are doing a lot of verification before you have a handshake, either with an enterprise plugin or a navigation plugin or a music plugin. The moment you go towards financial services, the moment you go towards healthcare, it's very different. So the world and the ecosystem is kind of learning in this process, and I expect we're going to see a lot more changes kind of come in that we will definitely adapt to it. We are part of that discussion, but nothing has been commercially launched yet. So it's like an exciting space, and I'm sure we're going to learn a lot.
I think we have time for one more question. So, well, maybe this is the tech holy grails, tech industry's holy grail, is to make the AI the next user interface. This was supposed to be with Siri. Siri didn't do that. Is it possible right now? And above all, is it possible with just SLMs?
So when you look at human-to-machine interface, I'll take my example as such. I have, I don't know, maybe 150 applications on my phone and possibly 70 plus apps on my PC. It's becoming almost impossible to really go choose that specific app and have a certain kind of interaction. So the most important element is when you look at improving your human-machine interface is, can I go towards an appless environment? The appless environment by definition means you need to really have an agentic flow, and the front end of an agentic flow is your voice. Now we have to make sure we put a lot of investment in the voice conversations, that it's able to recognize you and you only. It is not that if somebody from my family comes and say, hey, wake up, it starts activating and giving all kind of information. So that is one piece of information that needs to get done. Once it is completed, the second step is, what is the user asking for? Here is what we call as the classification step. Is the user asking for something to do in the navigation domain, in the entertainment domain, the financial domain, or the healthcare domain? And this classification is very critical. It's obviously based off language models. These language models could be between 3 billion parameters all the way to 30 billion parameters. More the number of parameters, more the number of classes. And once this is completed, the next step is taking an action on top of it. Taking that action and a navigation or entertainment domain can also be based off a language model. Also could be an SLM or could be a large model. And one of the most difficult aspects of this path of enablement is there are going to be always instances wherein the models on the edge are just not able to answer a certain query. So at that point of time, the hybrid router, which is set up, needs to transfer that information to the cloud with the permission of the user and the contextual information to carry that conversation. And this is where the large reasoning models can come in and then get things done. So in totality, I think the SLMs are the way to go, but we still have some work to do to really make sure that we can complement what the cloud is doing.
Okay. I think we've already run out of time. Thank you very much, Dr. Vinesh, for sharing your knowledge about Agentic AI with us. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for the opportunity.